Welcome back to Wayne TV. It is wellness check time, and that is always done by our wellness nurse here in Wayne County, Miss Michelle here. It's good to see you again. And today we've got a very interesting topic, as we always do, but this is one that affects a lot of people as far as death is concerned. It is talking about heart disease. Just right off the bat, what is heart disease and how many people does it affect?
Well, it's the #1 leading killer in the United States with heart disease.
Oh my goodness.
According to the CDC, over 600,000 Americans die each year with heart disease.
Such a serious thing that I think a lot of us don't think about, especially when we go to eat at our favorite restaurants with our burgers and different things that we eat sometimes.
Enjoy now and pay later.
Right, that happens in many, many different ways. Now, when you talk about the term heart disease, what are we actually talking about when we say heart disease?
We're talking about the actual heart and then the structures that pertain to the heart, your blood vessels, your arteries.
And those are the things I get. Is the word actually clogged? I don't know that that's a medical term, but do they become clogged over time? Is that one of the problems?
Arteries can.
I see.
And that can be the start of the heart disease.
And I was looking over some of the materials that we had here today that you were mentioning before we went on the air that actually some people are born with heart disease. And I guess with our technology today that they're be able to pick up on those things sometimes. Is that right?
That's right. Children when they're born can have a congenital defect in their heart.
I see.
You may have heard the term a hole in the heart, which is a hole between the septum of the atrium. That is considered to be a heart disease. Heart disease can also refer to coronary artery disease. It could be a valve in your heart problem where it's not opening, closing.
I have someone in my family right now that's about to have some surgery because of that valve not opening and closing that way. So they're finding out, I guess, more and more every day, different ways. My family has been in the pork business for many, many years, and I know over the years we've actually sent the valves from the pig hearts to different places. They'd go to Raleigh-Durham Airport and they'd be shipped around. Is that because they can use some of the animal valves like that? That is amazing.
They still use that? I'm not sure.
Yes, they do. They do.
Oh.
And they send them out every single day. So it's amazing. I guess they have synthetic valves, but they also still use those in that way. Tell me this, people that are at risk, who would be people that are at risk for heart disease?
These would be people that have high diets in saturated fats, smoking, those that don't exercise regularly. It's recommended that we exercise at least 30 minutes a day.
And tell me this, I think I remember this correctly, and there was a rhyme that went with it, 10 minutes at a time is fine. I think they say if you can get your heart rate up enough, I guess some people don't want to exercise because they think, oh, I got to go out here and get hot and sweaty for 45 minutes or an hour, but it really doesn't take that much time. Is that right?
No, you can exercise, 30 minutes, you can do 10 minutes in the morning, 10 at lunchtime, and 10 in the evening, or, break up 15 increments. So as long as you're doing something.
That's right. And I guess when you're saying doing something, you've got to get your heart rate, the heartbeat up higher than it is normal at a resting beat. Is that right? I have something now, like some people wear a trusty Fitbit watch, and so it keeps me on tune or in tune as to what I should be doing when. Every so often I'll feel the watch buzz, and when I look at it, it'll say, you've got another 150 steps this hour, so it gives me that motivation, to move forward and do those things. And accountability, that's exactly right. And I also saw, we were talking about children just a moment ago, that children can develop heart disease, and I'm wondering outside of from a birth standpoint, if maybe all the fast food that kids are consuming today, if that's one of those pay later situations they might have down the road. And it's amazing that well, I say it's amazing, and then sometimes I say it's not, because we live in such a hurry world now that we think, well, let me run by one of our fast food restaurants, pick my kid up something for supper or whatever, and then run home, and we get into homework, and then we do the rest of the things before we go to bed. Then we get up and do the same thing the next day, but those will catch up with you after a while, won't they?
It will. And the thing about fast food, it's fast and it's cheap.
And that means it might have some things in it we shouldn't be eating every single day. Is that right?
I don't know what would be in it.
That's right, exactly. Now, we were talking about some issues, an unhealthy diet, like we just said, smoking being another situation. I know we don't have quite as many smokers, say now, as we did in years past, but there are still people that do that. And I guess you look, most of the time, maybe people would say, well, lung cancer might be involved simply because of the smoking situation. But you're saying heart disease can be a part of smoking also, is that right?
Yes, and now what you mentioned that smoking seems to be down, but what people have tend to pick up is the vaping.
Right, that's something that a lot of young people are doing now, and so the folks will know that are watching. Vaping is actually, well, can you tell me? It's like a little machine, is all I can think of, that has it's a water base that has like a vapor. That's where the name comes from,
right.
Vaping, that comes out. But one thing I've seen on the news lately is that there's still nicotine involved, and that's the thing that kind of keeps you hooked with smoking too, is the nicotine. So I think they're showing now that even when vaping might quote unquote be safer than cigarettes, you're still in that same ball game, that it could very well be a heart problem along the way, a heart risk. That's right. One other one I was looking at here that I wanted to talk to you about is that word we hear when we go see our doctor, high cholesterol. What goes on with that?
High cholesterol. High cholesterol can lead to, to plaque in your arteries. We look at two types or three types. We look at your HDLs, which is your high density lipoproteins, and then your LDLs, which is your low density lipoproteins.
Now, explain to folks, because I always get confused. There is a good cholesterol and a bad cholesterol.
Yes.
Is that right? So which of the letters are the bad ones, and which one are the good ones?
It's an easy way to remember. I remember this in nursing school. Your HDL is the good cholesterol.
Okay.
So you always want those numbers high.
Okay.
H for high.
H for high. I like that. And you want LDL. I guess that would be the low when you got the L down.
You're right. And if you get your HDLs up high, these LDLs are going to go lower.
I see. Okay.
If you look at the HDLs like a little army man, they're going to go and fight the LDLs to lower the cholesterol.
I did not realize that. I certainly didn't. Now, we were going to discuss, in fact, we have a couple of charts here with us, and I'm going to be your Vanna White today, okay? I'm going to be the one that's holding the poster, and I'll be doing this as we go along. I need my wig to be Vanna White, I'll tell you that. That's one of the things. But in talking about heart attacks and being at risk, and talking about blocked arteries when we're talking about your HDL, your high cholesterol, does this particular, signage here show us what we're talking about?
So what you're looking at here is, this is an artery. Inside of the artery, you have cholesterol, serum cholesterol that floats through. The bad cholesterol, the LDLs, are the ones that are going to kind of get really sticky, and they're going to kind of clump up to the side of the artery.
And is that what that is, the yellow there?
Yes. So you can see where the cholesterol is starting to build up.
Okay.
And what tends to happen is, your blood's coming through, and the blood might start forming a clot here.
So this is actually considered to be like a blood clot.
Blood clot.
I see. That is what is giving you risk for maybe stroke. Is that
Strokes,
also?
heart attacks, pulmonary embolisms. This, what happens is the blood's flowing smoothly, and all of a sudden it gets stopped because the blood can't pass through the blood clot. And if you look at the heart here, you see the coronary artery, which runs down here. And imagine if the clot has stopped right there and the blood's not going down here, it's not bringing the oxygen and nutrients to the heart, your heart starts to die.
And of course, that's that in our brains are the two things you want to make sure that keep going all the time, because if either one of those are out of place, then we're definitely in a lot of trouble. And I want to just ask you this question, since we're looking at this, and you were mentioning these coming down on each side. When somebody has a bypass operation, or I've heard double, quadruple, all of these type things. Are they trying to bypass some of these veins here with new ones, or what are they doing when they say that?
So what they're doing is they will remove the vein from your leg. It's called the saphenous vein, and they will attach it up in here to get a good blood supply, and then they will kind of bypass.
So that's what they mean by bypass. They're bypassing the one that's damaged, is that right?
Bypassing the one that's damaged, so it will give a good blood supply to this part.
Now, when they say double or quadruple, is that they have several of these that they're bypassing in the same heart? Is that what they mean?
Right, and I've been fortunate enough to be on the surgical team where we actually did
Oh my goodness.
bypasses. And when you do, a double or quadruple, you're reattached wherever the damage is.
Now, again, once you have the bypass, can you also can they get clogged up over time too?
Sure.
So once you have the surgery, you're not getting a quote pass or bypass. You've still got to eat healthy, cut out the smoking and the different things we're talking about. This I want to go back to for just a moment because it's so interesting. I'm a very concrete person, so I kind of like to get concrete things in my mind here. I think sometimes of this being a water hose, and your water is flowing through the hose, and at times while you're watering your plants or whatever, the water pressure will go down, and there might be a kink in the hose, or there might be some sediment or something that has collected in the hose. So I'm thinking that and this doesn't just happen overnight. This is over a period of time that this occurs.
It starts when you're eating McDonald's or Hardee's at a younger age.
At a younger age, there you go. And we see obesity in children so much more now. But what is happening is the yellow part here is almost like fat. That is a sticky substance, and that is starting to clog each side, which doesn't give you as much room as you did have for the blood flow. And then with your blockage being here with the what do we call it? This was a blood clot. That is stopping up this entire area, so you're not getting the blood pumping from this area all the way back down in here. Is that when you sometimes will feel what a heart attack is feeling like the elephant sitting on your chest, or that sort of thing? Is that what's happening on the inside?
When this damage starts to happen. You brought up the water hose, and that's a good analogy. If you're thinking blood pressure itself is just the resistance of the flow of the blood inside your arteries. So you can imagine if you've got a blood clot, or you start to develop what we call atherosclerosis, this plaque, and over time this plaque becomes hard. It doesn't stay soft or sticky. It becomes hard, and it narrows that blood vessel. So the blood, as it's going through, it's got more pressure, as if you're stepping on a water hose, the pressure.
Sure.
Same concept here, and that creates high blood pressure.
So that's where we come up with the terms of high blood pressure, or pressure that is being put on your arteries to get the blood to flow through.
Right.
One other thing I was going to ask you about also, I'll kind of hold my sign down here beside of me, but again, some people know, sometimes we take for granted that people know, but what are some of the signs and symptoms of heart disease that maybe we can tell ahead of time that we need to be looking for?
If you start to feel, like you can't catch your breath, feeling very short of breath, maybe if you make up the bed and you normally do fine, but all of a sudden you're making up the bed and you start getting really short of breath, or just really increased fatigue feeling. If you start feeling your heart pounding or irregular heart rate, if you start to develop chest pains, or you could have breaking out in a sweat.
Yes.
These are all things that you may want to think about getting checked out by your doctor.
And of course, if you feel some of those symptoms coming on, now some of those symptoms can be for other situations or problems you might have, but still that's where calling 911 comes in if you feel like there's a need for that sort of thing. Better to be safe than sorry, as we say on a regular basis there.
That's right.
When you go to see your physician, how do they actually go about diagnosing that you have heart disease?
There's several things. So there's several things that tie into heart disease. It's just not labeled as one thing.
Yes.
We talked about it could be part of your atherosclerosis, the plaque building up. It could be congestive heart failure, and that's when your heart doesn't contract.
Oh, I see.
Very well, and it gets kind of lazy. And then it could be like a mitral valve prolapse or something like that, with your valves not closing.
Okay. Now, is this where they would use another of those three-letter terms, EKGs or things to check in that way?
one of the things that when you go to the doctor routinely, they will draw some lab work, a chest X-ray, EKG, and if they feel like you need a stress test, they'll go ahead and push for that, or maybe an angiogram or something.
You know, I'm one of those people, like most others, that hates needles, and I always wonder, why do they have to take blood, or why do I have to have a needle to start with? But do they find something in the blood that would show that the HDL or LDL is in what positions they are, or what do they find when they do a blood test?
That's a good question. What we do when we look at blood work, and your blood work is like your whole open motor, it kind of tells us
kind
what's
of a
going
diagram.
on. We look at, we can certainly test for your cholesterol levels. We can also see if your heart's been under stress by looking at certain enzymes in the lab work.
And that's amazing. You don't have to have necessarily the stress test to see that. You can actually see it in the blood itself.
And you can also, if your kidneys are not working properly, or you maybe retain a lot of fluid, we can also tell that with your blood work as well. That's
amazing. It's the things that doctors have been doing forever, but sometimes we don't know what exactly all of these things mean when that happens. Now, again, we're looking at ways, hopefully, that we can treat these situations. And one is I guess would be good to have our blood pressure checked on a regular basis. Would that be a great thing to do?
Yes, and know your numbers. Just don't get it checked and just say, oh, is it okay?
Right.
Ask what these numbers are. And there's a chart I want to go through.
Okay.
It talks about high blood pressures and the normal blood pressures.
I was telling you just before we began, I'm in pilot training now, which most people have got to be careful when they're on the road. Be careful if you're looking up in the sky, because I might be up there. But we have to have a Federal Aviation Administration physical. And as I was having that recently, the doctor was telling me there are some new numbers that we should be looking for healthy blood pressure versus what would be considered unhealthy. And so what are some of those numbers, or how does that pertain to it?
So for years it's always been 120 over 80. 120 is your systolic number, and your 80 is your bottom number, your diastolic. Now they're saying normal is anything less than 120.
Oh, okay.
So if your blood pressure is 100 and you're feeling fine and that you're not having any problems, that's your normal.
Oh, okay.
Of course, we don't want to get too low when you become symptomatic, maybe being dizzy and lightheaded. Those are things when you start to be concerned about low blood pressure.
Now, do you sometimes is the bottom number, it fluctuates also? Is that right?
It does. And according to the chart, now elevated blood pressure is anything between 120 to 129.
Okay.
And with your bottom number, it's 180 to 189.
Okay. Now, with that, I guess when you're on that borderline, is that when they tell you to get out and do more exercise, because does that help bring your blood pressure down? I guess stress also is another factor that would, I know it brings my blood pressure up when I get stressed out sometimes. In fact, I can see it on my face because all my blood is rushing and I get this red face, look at going on here. But is there a number when people would be concerned for it being too low? Is this below 100 on the top number, or where do you go when you're looking at, oh, well, man, like yours is low, but that's always not a good thing, Does that fall in line with a certain number itself?
It really depends on the person. One, are you symptomatic with your blood pressure being 100?
Okay.
That means, are you dizzy? Do you get lightheaded? Are you very sweaty, short of breath? You know when your body's not feeling good.
Right.
So for myself, a few years ago, that was my normal.
Okay.
My blood pressure was normally about 100 over 60. Now it's about 110 as you get older. But that was my normal. And I have had patients where their blood pressures were 98, 90 with the top number. It's not ideal,
right?
Because we don't see it every day. But unless you're symptomatic and your body's doing okay, and you're not having any other problems, you should be fine. But I would get it checked out.
Always, if you're in question about it, make sure you check it out. And when I was talking with my physician about the FAA regulations, he said that I'm from that one time checking it, I was on the borderline. He said, but sometimes actually going into a doctor's office will kind of elevate some of your levels because you're nervous. And he said that if you would like to invest in a blood pressure cup, or cuff rather, that you can get the ones where, of course, someone could be at home and take the pressure for you, or at the same time there are battery and electrical ones now, I guess, that you stick your arm in and it takes your blood pressure that way. So he said for people who are either on the borderline or if they do tend to have higher blood pressure, it would be good for them to check it on their own on a regular basis too. So that was one thing I didn't know about from that standpoint.
And that's a good point. There's on the CDC website, they can actually, people can go to the website and print off my blood pressure log.
Oh, okay. So this is actually where you list your date and that sort of thing?
Mm-hmm. The day that you took it and the time.
Okay. And now what are the instructions they give you here for, I guess, checking your own blood pressure? Because my thing has always been, I don't know if it's me that's not working right or the machine's not working right or that I didn't follow the instructions correctly. So what are you doing when you're actually self-checking your blood pressure?
I would sit very still, don't cross your legs, and try to use the same arm each time.
Okay.
And just, once you go grab your blood pressure cuff and sit down, sit there for about 5 or 10 minutes, because just walking across the hall or the room and then sitting down, you have to give your blood pressure a little bit of time to adjust.
This is another thing I found sometimes when we're at the doctor's office, we'll be in the waiting room and we wait what we think is more of a time frame than we should, but sometimes I have found that they might be ready for me, but they're waiting for me to kind of calm down from coming out of the parking lot, and if I'm rushing across traffic or something to get my heart rate where it would normally stay, from that aspect of things. Now, are there places that people can go? I remember you just mentioned a website, and are there different websites or other places that people can find out not only about their blood pressure situation, but heart disease in general?
I'm sure there's a good website. You can look up American Heart Association, has a lot of good information. And of course, the CDC.gov is always a good one.
Wonderful. And it will, I guess you can follow and highlight whatever you're looking for on there, and it will give you instructions as to how to follow that. I thank you for telling me about this today. I didn't know as much about my blood pressure as I should, and that's why we have our wellness nurse here to share these things with us. Before we go today, are there any other things you'd like to share with us we might have mentioned?
So how can it be prevented? Because a lot of heart disease can be preventable. One is get out there and walk, move.
Some people think they see people jogging or running down the road, that they think, well, that's the only way I'm going to get any exercise is to really pick up Pat and Charlie, these 2 feet, and run down the road. But walking, you said, is a good thing.
Walking is good. Walking is good. Aerobic exercise is good. You want to maintain a healthy weight. So if you're not at that healthy weight, that should be a goal that you should start working on.
Is there a place that you can go to find out for your age and height and being a male or female what your average weight should be?
I think you're referring to what, a BMI?
I think that's right. Yes.
Sure, your doctor's office can let you know. You can also look online on your phone. There's a lot of apps for that. Just plug in your weight, your height, your age, and your male or female. It'll give you a guideline of where your BMI should be at.
And when you mentioned a while ago, get out and do aerobic exercise. I joined a Zumba class one day, and I was the only male amongst all the females there. And
I know she said one day.
That one day. I'm glad you picked up on that, because it was very strenuous to do this. You think, oh, we're just going to go in there and hop and skip and move around. But I mean, the hopping and skipping we did was very fast for almost an entire hour. But it was a program, because we would do some very fast exercise. Then we'd slow down to some different music, do a little bit of different exercise. It was certainly good for me because it helped me catch my breath before we went right back into something again. But is that true when you're doing your exercise now? If you can do short bursts of things quickly and then maybe slow down, maybe in a fast walk, and then walk your regular pace?
I can answer that.
Okay.
Truthfully, I don't know. I would think that the aerobics instructors or whoever's teaching that class would have more knowledge in that.
Well, I tell you, they didn't have me running around, but I was running in place an awful lot. And they called it dancing. It looked nothing like dancing to me when I was up there. But it was fun. And I think that's the thing that we want to maybe make sure the folks know that are watching is that you can have fun when you exercise. Find something that you enjoy doing, but you've got to exert enough energy for it to do you any good from that aspect of things.
Right. And one of the things I would recommend that works for me, because if my earbuds or my iPods is my friend. If I don't have them with me when I go out to do my run walk, I am in trouble. Because the music is what motivates me.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because I'll wear some people wear full headsets and sometimes people wear just the earbuds like we're talking about. But sometimes the music, or if you're listening to a podcast or something else that's very interesting to you, you kind of quit thinking about that you're doing exercise. And you get your mind on what's going on with your music or whatever you might be listening to. And I have found that to be a great thing to do because before I know it, that time frame is up and I've done my exercise, I've enjoyed what I've been listening to, and I haven't been thinking every 2 seconds, man, how much longer have I got to do this, you know?
Well, there's a lot of good apps out there too with running music. It gives you a good tempo when you're running, so you can keep your pace, and you don't even realize it. But the music is just keeping up. You're running to the pace of the music.
You know, I have found that if I'm listening to music, and mine is not set in a certain order, but if I hear a faster, upbeat song, my feet are moving quicker than if I'm listening to a slower song. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. So maybe that's a good thing to have some of the faster songs that you enjoy, and then some that slow it down also. That's wonderful. Well, these are things we definitely need to know about because the heart disease is so prominent, not only here in the United States, but around the world. And if we can just do some of the small tips that we talked about here, they can make a big difference in our heart health and our general health of how we feel. I know that quite often when I have done talks to people about being motivated in what they do, when you run, walk, exert yourself like that, chemicals, endorphins are released from your brain, which are the good chemicals that make you feel good. And so that's what we want you folks to do is get up and start moving. Each morning on our Channel 10 station, we have our seniors over at the Peggy Seeger Center.
Oh, I love that.
Yes, we have exercises, and it comes on each morning at 8 o'clock, and then it repeats again at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, the thing is not to sit there and eat potato chips and watch these people do the exercise. It's for them to enjoy it and join into what they're doing. And the day that I went to tape, we taped several of those, but it is amazing to see the age of some of those folks that are, you know, in shape and love to go in there and exercise, because that's a way that you can have camaraderie with someone if you walk with them or if you're in an exercise class. That's that, I guess, when you're being faithful to making sure your numbers are falling, you've got another person there to help you maybe when you don't feel like it, you know, along the way. The accountability factor, that's very true. When it comes to weight loss, I have found accountability factors make a big difference. And very quickly, I just want to add this as we finish up today. You've actually had a 10-week program that you've just finished up that helps people to have actually lost inches on their waistline, which at the same time helps them lose weight. Quickly, can you tell us a little bit about the program, what you did, how you did it, anything about it that you enjoyed and people might want to get involved in something like that later on?
Sure. It's bittersweet that it's over with.
Yes.
But we had amazing results. We started a new program. It's called It's Your Future, Be There. I teamed up with Michelle Estrada, and she's with the Cooperative Extension Agency here in Wayne County. And
we do a cooking with Michelle, and she always makes sure we cook healthy things, but they're very delicious because we get to eat them after we finish up. So did she help you in that way?
Yes, she brought her talent with us.
Wonderful.
And so we teamed up with Go Wayne Go with Wayne Memorial. And we combined classes on nutrition, fitness, and then the health diseases that can be preventable.
Yes.
So each week, the dedicated employees of Wayne County came to these sessions and they learned all three of these components and kind of tied it in together. our focus was to lose waist inches.
Okay.
Not so much weight, but the waist inches, because you, anyone that has the apple shape, the roundness, is more at risk of diseases like diabetes, colorectal cancer.
Okay.
But anyway, it sets you up. So when you start to lose all that fat from the inside,
Right.
you get to be a little bit more healthier and more
Wonderful.
health conscious. So with our employees, we lost, and we had about 35 to 37 participants. We lost a total of 57 inches.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
You're losing a person there. Of all your people, one
Right.
just disappeared there. But I'm sure it was amazing to hear the stories, because we have a video presentation we're showing now of some of the folks that were a part of the program. And they were just telling us about some of the things that they learned to do or not to do, most importantly, during
Right.
that.
Right. And amazingly, with the diet and the nutrition, is mostly portion control.
Yes. I
Portion
think we
control.
see in America now that we go to a restaurant and they give us the plate that used to be a platter size, but now it's a plate size. And, you know, they fill up that plate. And as I learned as a child, my mom always said, clean the plate, make a happy face on your plate. Sometimes that's not the best thing to do. The best time, I guess, to push away is when you're actually feeling like you've had enough to eat. You know,
Right.
from that aspect of things. Well, that's amazing. 57 inches
57.
in the 10 weeks that you guys were together. Well, there again, it just shows you there are different programs that you can get involved in that can help you with weight control. And when you start working with weight control, as you were saying, with the inches, that also helps from a diabetes standpoint. And I saw earlier on some of our information here that diabetes can be affected when you have heart disease also.
They kind of go hand in hand.
Hand in hand. And again, we're seeing a lot of young people now, and I tend to go back to that because it is so important. These children that are from, I guess, pre-kindergarten age that are going up into their teens. We usually see teens eating junk food anyway. It was just earlier on in our bygone era when everybody wasn't quite so busy. The kids would get other nutritious foods, but now it seems like they go from junk food to junk food, and we're seeing more, I guess, juvenile diabetes and really health problems from kids being overweight at the same time. So this is just not something for older people. This is something for everybody to be aware of. Michelle, it's so nice to see you again today. I appreciate that. We'll be back again next month with another wellness check with Michelle Hill. So you watch for that. We're going to have a great time. We always have a great time talking about the topic for that particular month. This month is heart disease. We're going to surprise you with what's going on our next program. We'll see you soon. That's right. Thank you.